Welcome to the Earthworks Podcast, where our team will share the jargon of carbon from many of our turf friends from the past 30 years.
Hi again, everybody. It's been a few weeks since I've been on, but I'm excited about this one. I pinned Mr. Nick Wolfe down and got him to agree to come on with me. Nick, thanks for joining us, first of all, and I'm excited to kind of dig into the history of the golf course you're at and talk about weather, because we've had a lot of southern guys and a lot of guys in the U.S. I should preface this with you're quite a bit far north in Canada, so we're going to get into weather and some of the struggles with that, because I think a lot of the guys that are certainly in the southern tier states of the U.S. have no idea what you guys go through up that far north. So I hope I don't dig up any bad memories from this winter or winters past, but I think it bears talking about anyway. So thanks for joining us.
Hey, pleasure's mine. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, it's going to be great. So let's start with you, first of all. How did you get into the industry? What's your background? Did you kind of stumble in it, or have you always been in golf?
I was a young golfer, but not good, 15, 14 handicap. I was at the Kelowna Golf Country Club as a junior, moved up into intermediate, a bracket in between the memberships, so you didn't have to pay $3,000 a year.
Okay.
And a lot of my friends were on the grounds crew, and I was at that point in time I was a janitor at the college, so I'd have summers off, so I'd be the dew sweeper out early, moving tee markers off as I was playing, and trying not to get in their way, and talking with the superintendent, and having fun there. And I went back to go get my job at the college, and they had replaced me. So I mentioned it on a Wednesday night to the assistant superintendent. He said, show up Friday with your resume. So I showed up Friday and said, okay, we're going to the ballet. And they were leaving at 1 o'clock, and that's code for a strip bar. So we went there and had my job interview. And he was heading off to Fairview College on Monday to start school, Labor Day weekend.
Okay.
And he said, show up at 6 a.m. and it was aeration day. So I worked a snow shovel till about 6:30 at night and helped them load the last little Cushman top dresser, if you remember those babies back in 1991. And the boss looked at me and said, show up again tomorrow. And from then on, I just never left it.
And
I had my own business in the late. But
you said that was Kelowna Golf and Country Club?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's
where you're from?
I grew up in Kamloops in Kelowna.
Okay.
I was born in Edmonton, but I don't tell people that.
The
Oilers.
Oilers, yeah. Well, and the only thing non-hockey fans know about Oilers right now is your favorite fan. I think she's gotten her 15 minutes of fame, and she's already. Yeah.
Certainly, but I hate the Oilers, so it's been a long summer so far.
So are you a Flames fan, or what's the story there?
Vancouver Canucks.
Okay.
Growing up.
Got it. All right. So I told you before we hit the record button, just to get a little bit of background on where you are now. I did a little research on the website, and there's a story to be told here. I'm not sure where to start, but the golf course name is Gunby Ranch Golf Club. It's 9 holes, right? But you've got a bunch of other things going on there. You've got a fitness center, community hall, sports fields, which is softball, baseball, I assume?
Softball and a soccer field.
Okay. And then curling in the wintertime, right? Which is a big deal for you.
Yeah.
So are you in charge of all of that stuff?
Theoretically, yes. I don't do anything in the center part, like for dances or anything, but I do. We are now back mowing around it this year. Last year we didn't have to because we had one less staff member.
Okay.
But yes, I'm in charge. We had a ball tournament a couple weeks ago, so we spent extra time at the ball diamond getting them ready. We got to cut that once a week with the soccer field. and it takes about 6 hours. But
Okay.
this year we have the cavalry starting tomorrow. We got 2 kids coming tomorrow, so we'll be up to a staff of 4. Awesome.
Nice. Okay, so I want to get into this a little bit later, but I want to kind of circle back to the golf course. I want you to talk about curling because you may or may not know this. I'm half a Canadian. My dad's from Ontario, and my grandma was a big curler in Eastern Ontario. As she got a little bit older, she curled up until she was into her late 80s, I think. But so I know just enough to be dangerous about it. But you're going to have to explain that to the folks that haven't been exposed to it. But we'll get back to that here in a minute. So your website is Gunby Ranch and DeBolt and District Agricultural Society. What in the world does that mean? What's the history of that?
So the Ag Society started way back when with the building and just to run dances and have agricultural shows.
Okay.
We're in a cultural community. There's farmland everywhere around here. And so to have the dances and have a building built, and then it added in the curling was big back then. So they added a curling rink that has been moved, I think, from one area to another in the same area, same body building. Then Jerry Gunby 50 plus years ago donated the land for the golf course.
Okay.
We didn't have a golf course. And the Ag Society took that over. And then they also added about 10 years ago, another guy, Marv Moore, donated the land for the ball diamonds and the soccer fields and the concession stands and all that stuff. So that went under the Ag Society. And this way, the way you can apply for grants through the government, provincial government, on being an Ag Society, and they'll give you X amount of dollars a year is something to budget. The more things you have, the more money you get.
Oh, okay.
So you've got 7 branches going on.
Right.
And, so if we can get 500 kids coming in to visit curling, well, they look at that and say, well, this is awesome. You teach kids how to curl. Well, we'll give you $50,000. Or you've got a golf course, we'll give you, because it's a community thing. So we're kind of run by society, and then each block has its own committee. So the whole board has its own committee.
Okay.
And golf course has a committee, curling club has a committee. There's no field committee for the soccer pitches. I just go look after it, and make decisions, and ask forgiveness or ask when to do things.
Right.
And then there's other things in there like the library and the fitness center, and like they have yoga twice a week in there. Chair yoga is the best. You sit on a chair and you sort of meditate for an hour, and it's kind of relaxing. But it's also the same.
I call that my office chair, but whatever, that works.
So it's just a big wheel with all these branches and things outside of it. The thing that makes the money is the golf course.
Okay.
And it's a non-profit society. So the golf course makes money, and we now spend it at the golf course, but we take some to prop up the other stuff. But at the end of the day, they're not going to let it die. The provincial government or the district of Greenview will keep the money going, keep the curling club alive, keep
Okay.
the hall paid.
Yeah.
So the bills are always paid, and from what I've been led to believe, they have, even after COVID, they have a 1-year fund in there that if all hell broke loose, which I can't imagine it being worse than the COVID year,
Right.
sure, nothing came in. So, we're all right that way.
Okay.
But it's just a bunch of wheel spokes.
So it's a nonprofit, but it's a privately operated and owned. It's
Nope.
not a municipal facility, right? Or is it?
Pay for membership,
Okay.
and anybody in the area can pay your $2 and go to the annual general meeting. And we live in a hamlet of 200 people, so you might get 60 people to the annual general meeting.
Okay.
And a lot of the STP, same 10 people doing everything, so they get burned out. Other 10 people come in. So it always seems to be a revolving door of people getting burned out and then coming back in. But
Sure.
it's interesting. Like there's a lot of it's a slow moving wheel sometimes.
Right.
You know, you need it. Sometimes it's just better to just go do it and then beg forgiveness.
Yeah,
So,
but I would assume too, though, that you've got tons of community support because it is kind of the hub of the community, and like you said, they don't want it to die, so they'll do what needs to be done to keep it going, right?
yes, we have a lot of guys as they get older that have been here forever in the area. You know, suddenly there'll be a $50,000 donation, or the
Sure.
food bank we come out of there too. And one of the buffalo bison farmers, you know, I'll donate a bison. Well, that's going to fill freezers forever
Yeah.
for the local food bank people and things
Right.
like that. So it's you know, there's a lot of donations. They have a big dance in early November that probably raises $100,000, and
Okay.
through the fertilizing companies, not yours, but there's a couple big ones around here that donate a lot of money,
Yeah.
and like that, like in the gas station lady donates a few $1,000s. It's amazing how much they donate.
That's great. But like you said, like I said, it's a community benefit, so they know to keep it going. They've got to be involved. So it DeBolt is the town, correct? That's where the golf course is located.
We're about 5 kilometers, 3 miles for the Americans, outside the golf courses. But yeah,
Okay.
the hamlet is one, it's 5 streets, and depending on who gets born or who's in jail, it's about 200 people.
Okay.
So it's
So,
hamlet
so
of, but then the farmland.
so give us a geographical idea, because you mentioned you're far north, right? So
Yeah,
where are you?
we're 3.5 hours northwest of Edmonton,
Okay.
up Highway 42, I think it is,
Okay.
or about 40 minutes to Grand Prairie,
Okay.
Alberta, which is the biggest around here. It's
Got it.
100,000 people.
Okay.
So yeah,
So
that's
that
where we go to
so
our grocery shopping.
so what that means to me is, the ag is probably wheat. What else is growing that in that part of the world? Potatoes.
Canola,
Okay.
peas, and wheat, and
Okay.
they rotate the three crops.
Right. Got it.
There's a lot of crops.
Yeah. People that
And then there's a lot.
we have what are called flyover states, which are the Dakotas and Montana and some of those, but that the Alberta and Manitoba are the flyover provinces for a lot of people. You don't realize how much food is produced in that area, but it's a pretty harsh climate too, isn't it?
Yeah, like today was our warmest day. We finally got to 26 Celsius,
Okay.
and but that's I'm going to say 77-ish
Yeah.
Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, today was by far our warmest day, and we had a rough winter, so we haven't had much growth. There's
Okay.
been no heat, and
Yeah.
yesterday was warm, and you just like you can see the greens filling in each hour as you drive by doing something else.
That's that.
So it's now grow time. Now I got to start using my irrigation more, and you know, so you got to monitor the. We've got 3 or 4 ponds that we can pump into our irrigation pond, but we've already used some water to try to kick it,
Okay.
but there was no heat.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hooked up the air conditioning.
Perfect. It's just
Or no,
just on
not,
time.
but
So so what's your typical season for the golf course?
we opened this year April 17th. That was early. Usually it's May 1st till we close at the end of September.
Okay.
Well, first week of October, and because Thanksgiving's in Canada, it's like about the second weekendish in Canada, and
Yep.
so we'll do our blowouts. And we got to blow out the clubhouse, and we got 80 campsites that are in there that we have to blow out, and some outdoor bathrooms. And then we start chopping leaves and putting on our final fungicides early October, and then at the as close to snow as can. And then Thanksgiving weekend, we just take 4 days and just sit and stare at each other and go, well, we got through that year. And then curling ice starts.
Okay. So the curling isn't a year-round deal. It's indoor though, right?
No, no, it's we want to have it going by November 1st to 5th. We want to get the ice in,
Okay.
and then we're done. We're supposed to be done early March, but we always seem to drift it into late March. Like I'm supposed to get a few weeks off in between. This year was 4 days, so I had 6 days off during curling season. So the burnout's happening right now.
Uh-huh.
That's why people, and 2 kids showing up tomorrow full time. You know, one's learning fairways on tournament day. It should be awesome.
Well, you had a post on Twitter or X, and I got to just call it X because it's X. I mean, it's not like
Yeah.
Elon's going to change it, but you had a post a while back, and I made a note of it for later, but we might as well talk about it now since you've got your guys starting. That you had a pretty good turnout for summer help this year. Um, it, have you found it a little bit easier to hire now that things have kind of gotten back to normal a little bit?
Well, and because we have farm kids, so they want to break from the farm.
Okay.
So okay, we'll go work at the golf course, and I teach curling from grade 4 or 5 to grade 12s in the local school. So I know all the kids through that.
Okay.
And my curling partner, Briley, she's 15, so she tells me who I should hire and who I shouldn't. So that helps too. And so we had 6 kids, and we had one that didn't make the cut, and the other one had already done some volunteer work with us. So I knew kind of he was going to get hired, so I knew what I was getting with him.
Okay.
The other ones, when I got rid of one that wasn't working out, a couple others found jobs, and then one fell into my lap, and he's working out really well. He's already told me that if I need a little track hole, he'll just bring one from his dad that he's got there. Well, yeah, I need those root prunes over there, and I need to put in an irrigation pipe over here for a new tee box. Well, when do you want me to bring it? I don't know, Tuesday or Wednesday, type thing. So, and that's the farming mentality. I'll just grab it
Right.
from home and drive it out. You there, you show me what you want done. And the kid's 16 years old. He's flying around on a track hole because he's been doing it for 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And you don't need to train him either. That's perfect.
Well, it's
Or pay
farm
rental
kids
fees.
are different. Farm kids are so different than the other.
Yeah.
Like it's just the work ethic. It's just crazy.
Well, it's cool.
Okay.
It's cool. You've got that built-in pipeline too, where an interview is almost a formality because you know them by name before they even come in the door. I've heard from a lot of my territory that hiring's been a little easier this year, and I'm always a little pessimistic on stuff. And my theory has always been when the economy slows, it gets a little easier for golf course guys to hire because it's kind of the bottom rung, and sometimes certainly seasonal work is a rotational type of thing. But I'm hearing a lot of people are being able to pick between several applicants rather than having to just check for pulse and tell them to show up tomorrow, sort of thing. So that's good to hear that it's the same in Canada.
And I would love to have another adult on the crew, but they're with oil field workers, you can go make $40 sitting beside somebody in a truck. So it's just they're not going to come and work for 20. They're going to, and we have access to one of the campers. He'll do a lot of my mechanical work, so that gets taken off my plate now this year.
Oh, good.
Which is nice. So now I can read more about turf, and we had 3 major breaks this year: irrigation and camping water. Where I think over a 7-day period we put in about 80 hours. Lisa, myself, and this other guy Barry, to get it all hooked up. And without that, I would have been just a crying mess in the corner.
Yeah.
But the third person to help there. So,
Well, now you've got a track hoe
but
too,
yeah,
so you're all set.
well, and I do have a big hoe that's like 60 years old. So when it does run, it's good. But a little track hoe, you can fly around, and a guy will just pull up the trailer and unload it. You know, at 6:35, I've already painted the line where he wants to go dig, and he's already out there at 6:40 type thing.
I love it. I love it. That's cool. You mentioned it was Fairview College, right?
Yes, that's where my buddy went. I didn't go there. I went to Kwantlen College and became a journeyman horticulturalist.
Okay, and Fairview's no longer doing a turf program, are they?
No,
I didn't think
the
so.
only one in Alberta's Olds College.
Okay.
Near Red Deer.
And then you've got to go to Ontario for Guelph if you want to go the next step. Right?
Yeah, and I think each province has one. Like I know Kwantlen College has one in Langley down near Vancouver.
Okay.
And that's where I went. I did the journeyman thing, 96 to 99. And then I think I'm gonna guess there's probably one in Saskatchewan and Manitoba too.
Okay.
But before there used to be all sorts of them. Now it's down to one per province.
So what does a journeyman agriculturalist typically lead into?
Journeyman horticulturalist.
Horticulturalist.
So,
sorry.
I learned how to build walls and things like that. Like you had to theoretically, I learned 550 different plants.
Okay.
And then you learn how to do plant designs and things like that, and look after how to prune things. But there's also a turf element. And when we got turf, they started teaching it. Well, no, you do this first. You always check the oil in your machine. Well, do you want to take over? Sure. So I took over. The teachers took me, and they had a 3-hole golf course there.
Okay.
And so we got to go mow and stuff, and I'm teaching them solar plexus to line up at something that's not moving. Don't line up at a bunny; it's gonna hop away.
Right.
And check your oil, and if this is what you're listening to, if things change, take it into the mechanic and tell them, and things like that. Then there was a big thing on irrigation, but it was mostly household. So
Sure.
all my irrigation I had to learn just trial and error. But at the end, and a lot of the stuff had to do with fruit trees also being BC.
Right.
And a lot of that stuff now we use, cytokinin and stuff like that. We're using that more in agriculture, in turf and agriculture. Then they tell you how to spray on the fruits to make it ripen faster or whatever, slow the ripen. And so it was interesting, but it also gave us a ticket. There was 4 of us that did it out of Kelowna Golf Country Club to start our careers. And one of them's now the superintendent at Kelowna. Another one went and did a UMass short course, 6 weeks there.
Okay.
And did here in Olds, and he's now a superintendent at Sunset Ranch in Kelowna. And the other guy's head of the all the soccer fields, all the fields for the school district of Kelowna. So it's like all of them went different ways. I just chose to go on a magical mystery tour to northern Alberta.
That's okay. You seem to have found home for sure. So so it sounds like that program might have been designed to lead into kind of the landscape industry and things like that. So, but there's a lot of crossover.
Yeah, and it also leads into, like, for city workers, you become a journeyman, you're going to get paid a ton more money than if you're just a lead hand.
Okay.
So, you still had, and our boss at the time had also taken it back in the early 70s, so he recommended it. You're not going to go spend all this money at Fairview, or Fairview was still open then, or go out to Old. And Kwantlen had just started their program then, so we're learning everything, and the turfies were there. And it was an interesting school because you had furriers, people working on horses and stuff, horseshoeing and all this other stuff. And then you had turf people, and then you had all these science nerds, and it's like, holy
Weird
smokes.
mix, right?
And that's it. Like, it's a school of 400 kids. You know, it wasn't huge. It was kind of
Right.
fun. So.
And I think we're the same age. So you must have kind of dabbled around in some different things through your time before because you said you were late 90s in that program. Is that right?
Yeah, I started golf course 91. Before that was a couple of years of janitoring,
Okay.
being
Okay.
a janitor. And then before that, I was in kitchens. And the Calgary Olympics was coming up. And I had family in Calgary, and I had tickets to go see things and tickets to scalp. I had figure skating women's finals tickets to
Right.
scalp those to pick other tickets. And so I went in early January and said, I'm taking 3 weeks off to go to Calgary for the Olympics. They said, well, we can't give you 3 weeks off. We're heading off to Arizona for a month. You're the assistant manager. And I said, well, then I'm turning in my notice. I'll be done on February 10th because I'm going to Calgary for 3 weeks. Well, we'll make it work. I said, no, it's the restaurant industry. I can come back and find a job anytime.
Yeah.
But you look at the restaurant industry, there's a lot of demons there. And, you know, we're working to 4 a.m. and then we'd sit around and drink beer and smoke dope and you're going to bed at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those, I could see myself going into a bad way if I continued. So
Right.
I got out of that and janitorial just kind of fell into my lap. And, well, you get to work nights and go play golf in the morning, then go have a sleep and go do it again. So I found that good, but it wasn't paying the bills. It was just something to get through to figure out what the heck I wanted to do.
Sure. Sure. That makes sense. So, all right. So we're going to get into this now because I think the reason we first kind of connected is you've really taken some deep dives into biology and biological management of soils and things like that. And we've talked about Jerry Brunetti, who helped found our company. And how did you fall into that part of things and why? And then I want to get into what it's doing for you. I mean, you're playing with compost tea. You're one of very few golf course superintendents that's read Jerry Brunetti's book, and I think you said at one time you've bought 2 or 3 of them because you give them out to other people.
I'm up to 3 now. I've got one copy that's mine, and I loaned 2 out that I haven't got back.
Yeah, I've got a few of those volumes as well that don't seem to.
Yeah.
But that's okay, right?
Yeah, $40 is $40.
Yeah.
Doesn't really matter.
So how did you find that world?
The Earthworks podcast.
Okay.
That's where it started. And then Acres USA, I was just screwing around and found that. And then I think I fell into Elaine Ingram stuff.
Yep.
Or whatever, you know, and she's got a webinar, it felt like every week.
Yeah.
Talking compost and soil. So I bought the Brunetti book and read it through twice.
It's a hard read, isn't it?
Well, Albright's books are much harder.
Yes, I would agree with you on that.
I got a curling buddy that's a farmer, and I'm giving him books, and it takes him 6 months to read one. And he goes, it's like reading a textbook, but it's so interesting. And this stuff's from like the 50s, and it's still relevant to our thing. So, Gunby Ranch, I started using spreading compost up at Grand Cache years ago because we keep our clippings in a pile and we're looking at them. My favorite job when a youngster would show up hungover on a Saturday morning is to send them out to turn the compost just to see if they puke. And just to laugh at them some more and teach them a life lesson that maybe you shouldn't have stayed out till 3 a.m.
Right.
And so I thought, just let's spread out the compost, and you could see the weaker areas getting better year after year. So when I went from there to Vermilion, did the same thing, spread it out. And the president there just thought it was great, so he was keeping his clippings when he was mowing his acreage, and he'd have piles, and he wanted me to bring it. Sure, so we'd spread that out in late October. And then we get to Gunby Ranch, and we've got 3 different microsystems We got the ninth hole that used to be the homestead where all the cattle was raised, so I don't really have to fertilize that fairway.
Sure.
There's enough. There's 50 years of natural fertilizer still in that, or I throw a little bit of fertilizer when I get. I just save it. It'll be next month when we'll fertilize the fairways finally.
Right.
And then we got other areas that we got 2 inches of soil and then this clay gumbo crap that when it gets wet, it just doesn't get dry, but the soil's hard packed. So, well, let's continue spreading the compost on there. And then about 2 years ago, I bought when I read Bernetti's book, there was stuff on compost teas, and I thought, well, let's dive into this more. So a couple of years ago, we tried our first one, and it worked well. You could see the improvement of the weak areas, and we took it out to the ball diamonds because we have no budget to fertilize those, and we tried it there, and it worked all right, except there was a smell complaint from one of the local residents. The wind was blowing, and so okay, well, I'll just use my compost tea out at the golf course then. Now I won't deal with the local people. And the next time it worked, and then the one time I forgot to put the molasses in later, and it didn't work as well. And the last batch I had, the first tank went really well, but the second tank I got about halfway done, and my spray nozzles were clogging up because it was sand from the top dressing sand in the clippings, and my pillow beads that we were using as our tea bag let the sand out, so it's filling up my. So you go from 1 gallon per minute down to a quarter gallon per minute. So I just dumped the rest of that out. Finally, cleaned my sprayer up. So now we're looking at, Lisa's going, well, what can we use as a bag for the next one? Tomorrow I've got the because we have a big tournament, there'll be a lot of bacon and eggs. So I said, well, throw your eggshells into a bucket for me. The clubhouse lady looked at me and said, are you high? I said, no, I want to crush them up and use them like compost. Next time you make your, she makes banana bread weekly. Next time you do that, just call me on the peels. Okay, sure. And just sit on the grass. And we want to try to get to a monthly system of spraying the weak areas because they don't get watered, they just get rain.
Okay.
Water where the weak areas are. And we sprayed on Saturday, and I think we had a little bit of rain, but areas of the rough that's normally 1.5 inches high, we cut it 2.5 inches, so we hardly ever have to cut it. Now it needs to be cut. So we know something's happening.
Something's working, yeah.
It's growing. Now, if it's just the straight nitrogen coming out of the clippings or whatever, but we didn't add anything. We just use straight compost tea, and we're mixing it 10 gallons of water to 1 gallon of the tea per load, like 200-gallon Gator sprayer, and away I go.
So your ingredients, it sounds like your ingredients for the tea kind of vary based on what's available, but it's all fairly closed loop, isn't it?
Yeah, I always throw in a few beer.
Okay.
We had some Budweiser that got frozen, so we threw those in. And I remember yesterday, as we were finishing up the day, gave us a couple of Pabst Blue Ribbon. We don't drink those. We drink other ones. We'll just put that in the back of the fridge and dump those in.
Right.
And we put in molasses, and then I put in milk because the local store a couple 100 yards away, when Thursday they take their milk off the shelf, they'll just phone me, are you doing your tea? Yep. Well, I got 4 gallons for it. So I'll just go grab that, throw that in. We're going to throw in some yogurt in the next one because we got some yogurt that's stale dated. So we'll just keep that, throw that in just to see if that helps at all. And then, we just let it sit for a week. We don't bubble it. We'll go stir it every now and then.
Okay.
And the camper that's really close to our shop will come over about day 3 and goes, you got that going again, don't you? Because the wind will just strip the smell over to him. And I go, yep. Okay, just wanted to make sure it wasn't my sewer. I'll do it.
So, I mean, there's so much variability. Do you keep track of the ingredients and maybe a response, or is it just
Yes, we take pictures and I write it down. Everything I spray, fertilizer, everything, I write in my book. Anyways,
okay?
got this compost tea. This is what we did, and like the last one we put on last Saturday didn't really smell that much, and so I wasn't really expecting things to happen. But even the young kids were out playing golf yesterday. They skipped their afternoon school, and they even said like where you sprayed, like it's like greener than you put down that piece of plywood. And that piece of plywood's still yellow in that spot. Our check, everything else is turning green. Now the dandelions are going nuts. They're enjoying it too. But I spray for those in the fall, so I'll deal with that then.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's did something because we had like the skip of rain since then, and the irrigation single row down the middle. It ain't getting rough.
Right. Right.
I quite enjoy when it's warm and the rough burns out because then we don't have to cut it.
I'm looking on my bookshelf. I think there's a whole, you mentioned earlier Acres USA as a resource, a tremendous resource. I mean, certainly not golf specific. In fact, they don't really mention golf at all except for Brunetti, but um, I've got a book up there somewhere that talks specifically about weeds and what certain weeds indicate in the soil health and soil chemistry. And it's kind of an interesting um, just an interrelation between the whole system, right? I mean, you might, I would think that yogurt would be a great ingredient because there's a lot of live and active cultures in that, and I would be curious to see if you aerated that stuff a little bit more, besides maybe foaming up and getting out of control, if you could get maybe a better, more consistent product. But it's interesting. I don't know a lot of guys that are building with on-site resources rather than, hey, I'm buying this from Amazon and I'm buying this and I'm putting these together and following following the recipe exactly as it was written in book XYZ. But as long as you're keeping track of it, I guess you'll know when you hit the pay dirt, and probably try to stick with that, I guess.
I'll change a little bit every time just to mess with my mind a little bit. And how it all started is I wanted to fertilize the rough and put some water, hydration plus or whatever, something to hold water when it rains. And I wanted to fertilize the fields, so I put in my fertilizer plan. And we can't afford that. That's every other golf course spends $5,000 left. We got to cut. Well, you don't understand. I want to do this and this. Oh no, we don't need to do that. Well, but I want it green. So how do I get it green? Well, let's try compost teas. And there's enough books out there on them that you can learn that. And then I read Gabe Brown has a book, and it's basically about no-till farming.
Yep.
So talking to the farmers around here, a lot of them have read that same book. So we got into basically you're no-tilling when you're a golf course. You're not pulling feet. You're just no-tilling. Now, I'm not going to go plant radishes out there to get as a cover crop, but if you get the odd batch of clover, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
But so having discussions with the farmers after curling, we're all trying to figure out what's best. And I can steal ideas from them, and then they look at me and go, "You actually know things. Like you're smarter than you pretend." And I go, "Well, that's because I don't want people to ask questions. I just want to come here and set up really nice and have some fun." But so then they start picking my brain, and it just becomes a round table, and then all the wives just geeks. They just shake their head and leave. So then that calms down the soil talk. But a few times a year we get together and or during current season we'll talk soils and like what do you do with your manure? Like spread it out on your fields more. Well, yeah, I suppose you're going to get weeds. Let it sit for a few years.
Yeah,
but you get the fertilizer out of it. So.
Well, and I think you have a couple of advantages that you maybe don't give yourself credit for. Number one, limited budget breeds creativity, right? I mean, you've got to get creative with the budget you've got. And then quite frankly, I've looked to other folks in our industry and in ag in Canada, because you're so restricted on the tools that you can use, that you have to be innovative and you have to look at other ways of doing things. And I think, that I've always tried to keep my ear to the ground with what not only golf course superintendents, but with what ag is doing in Canada, because I think they're, and even Europe for that matter, they're ahead of us because we've got so many tools. We've kind of dulled our senses and our skills a little bit to listening to nature and listening to the soils and really paying attention to the seasonal changes and stuff like that. And I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, like when I hear people spraying fungicides every other week or every 3 weeks for dollar spot,
Yep.
I'm thinking, okay, it's probably really bad. But isn't there something you can change to get rid of that? And there might not be, because I get dollar spot, I just look at it and say, oh, well, that'll go away. Next time I'll just use a bit more N or whatever. Mix
Right.
it in. But at the end of the day, I have 2 or 3 fungicides for greens, and one's early September, one's early October, one's as close to snow, and then I'll spray a half raid on my fairways and teeth and aprons. And if you get a bad winter like we did this year, where it's all exposed and -40, it doesn't matter what you spray.
Right. That's a whole different challenge.
That's yes. So, but at the end of it, like when you're on low budget, you just figure things out. And
Right.
I've never really had a big budget either. I've gone from 9-hole golf course to 9-hole golf course, 6 different 9-hole golf, well, 5, one twice now, golf courses, and you never have budgets. You don't have staff to throw at things. You just have to figure it out. I'm lucky because I got Lisa, that's my honey bun, that's a person and a half. She just goes from more to more to more. And like today, she did tees and aprons, finished up fairways, and by the end of the fairway finishing up, it was 1 o'clock, and we had lunch and went out, and we had to set up a temporary green because we had one green that we had to resod it. And there was a group on every hole, and it's like it's Friday afternoon. Well, don't these people work? What's going on? But
I know. Or
go,
what did they do that I didn't do, right?
Yeah.
Well, they got the crops are in already, so they're just waiting for stuff to grow at this point.
Yes, and it's rodeo weekend. So our big rodeos this weekend. It's about 3 kilometers away, and I don't do rodeo, but it's people come from all over Alberta for the chuck wagon races and the bull riding and all that stuff.
And that's so right in town.
Well, it's a couple kilometers from here.
Okay.
So picture town, like the gas station's a kilometer away from me, and there's 2 houses between me and the gas station. So the town's probably a square, say maybe a square mile.
Okay.
Like it's, there's.
But it's a community event.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's huge. Like there'll be 10,000 people over there.
Oh wow.
And it's like 200 people that live here, but they'll come from like all over the place. Like Teepee Creek Rodeo in mid-July, Teepee Creek's the same size as here. They get 25,000 people a day.
Wow.
And it's just like craziness. But they love the rodeo in Alberta.
And apparently they like their golf too, if they're rodeoing, right?
Yeah.
All right. So let me ask you this: if all of a sudden an operation with an unlimited budget dropped in your lap, assuming you took the job, what would you, with all the resources you could ever have at your disposal, what would you take from what you're doing today and apply it in that scenario? Or what would you change? That question makes sense?
Yeah. Well, I probably fertilize fairways more than once a year.
Okay.
I use more kelp. I find that that's a game changer.
Okay.
Uh, I would continue with my compost teas, and I because I'm just going to assume your irrigation is going to get the rough too with things.
Sure.
So instead of fertilizing the rough, I'll use my compost teas,
Okay.
and then you could build a better system instead of me stirring it with a broken handle.
Yeah.
You know,
I'll have to send you a handle or something, I guess.
yeah. And actually, there's a local guy, uh, Evan Akers, who does teas with worm castings.
Oh,
So I
cool.
would sit down with him and bring that part of it. Like he gave me a bag a couple tea things ago to throw into worm castings to throw into mine. And what he does is so I get more into the worm casting part too.
Yeah.
It's just he uses on his fields, all his teas, so I can't feel bad trying to steal some from him. And it would be I try to lean a little more organic where I can,
Mm-hmm.
and I would definitely punch holes in the greens more. I'm
Sure.
only able 2 or 3 times a year if I'm lucky. I would have a once every 4 weeks, just needle time, even
Yeah.
just
Yeah. Yeah.
when,
Well,
when you when you have that extra person, you so there wouldn't be many. I just continue using the same system that I have,
yeah.
but you'd have more people to do it.
And that's what I was curious to hear, whether you just abandon what you're doing because you had all the resources. And I'm glad to hear you say that you know, you've seen enough success that maybe on a scale, a different scale, you would still apply a lot of the same principles. I think that's pretty neat. I hope more people kind of dabble in that stuff and realize that there's other ways to skin the cat. Do you see any disease suppression with your teas?
I Even if I have disease, there's nothing I can do about it, so I just
Yeah.
let it go. Like so, but it's no, I don't. I wouldn't say there's any disease there anyways because it's just rainwater that waters it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like today's our warmest day. Yesterday was our first warm day of the year, and Lisa and I looked at each other and she goes, "You're going to do it tonight, aren't you? You're going to shut off the irrigation." I said, "Yep," because we've been pounding the water to it.
Mm,
You can see the ball marks in the greens. You can feel soft. And we got a 2-day tournament this weekend. So let's shut it off and try to dry them out. And then today it's warm and tomorrow's going to be near 30. So I'll have to water Friday night for the tournament, which I hate doing because I want to get them a little faster. The
right.
greens. But at the end of the day, I want to keep them alive too.
Yeah.
But then we got 80% chance of rain come Monday, and I'm supposed to be punching holes in top dress, and one of the kids will learn how to run a top dresser at 15, which will be exciting for them. But we'll go punch holes anyways, and we'll get to the top dressing when we get to it. But we have a school coming Tuesday of 60 kids out there at 10 a.m., so that'll be interesting to try to work around them.
Right.
And then there's seniors day of 40 people on Wednesday morning at 10, and then I got to make sure now that the kids are back that they get their time off too to keep normal and get them scheduled. Like I have a way that I want things done where I can actually get a day off soon. And so we're starting all that. So I find that overwatering's the biggest issue that people have because there's so many old school people that if you just pound the water to things, it's
Yep.
going to grow. Yeah, except you got black algae here, you got this, and they don't care. They just want it green.
Right.
So I'd rather have it green and firm than green and soft.
Well,
So
what you described is the set of challenges that everybody from Gunby Golf Course to Augusta deal with, and it's cool to hear that, you know, no matter what the scale of the operation, our focus is always the same. You know, creating the best possible putting surfaces and the best possible experience, no matter what your budget is, no matter what, you know, no matter what part of the world you're in. it's always interesting to hear different viewpoints and how similar they end up being at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and when you have a bit more staff, you can do so much more.
Right.
Like in Vermilion, I had a staff of 8, give or take. I had part-time people flowing in and out, and I had a flow chart up on the wall.
Sure.
I didn't know who was showing up some days, but I had the core 4, and the golf course was just incredible. Like you could do all the little things, and having the kids show up. Now I can go. We got a couple sprinkler issues. So I can now go deal with that
Mm-hmm.
because otherwise, my mower's on my butt's on a mower too, going
Yeah.
from mower to mower. And we cheat. We've got our fairways at 7/8 of an inch instead of something ridiculously low.
Sure.
Our teeth and aprons at 4/10 of an inch, and my greens I only go to 135. Like I don't go crazy stupid low. We do a lot of rolling.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, we in our side windings inch and 3/4. So it makes our life easier. We're not stressing me out by having 5/8 inch fairways where now I got to water them. If I don't water them, they're fine. They're nice and lush. Now with extra kids coming, now we instead of cutting them 2 or 3 times a week, now cut them 4 times a week, so they're going to look better.
So grass species, I assume, as far north as you are, and the potential for open winters, you probably don't have a lot of POA, do you?
We have POA. It's just starting to seed.
Okay.
So, I don't fight it because it fills in nicely.
Right.
But we
right.
put up 100 pounds of bent grass seed on my green so far this year and slid it in. And you can see it now that's popping too. So now it's going to be the rush to get into the dead spots.
Yeah.
By both that. At the end of the day, the POA, you get a good winter where we have nice snow cover and it leaves April 1st and everything's nice in the spring. POA is ready to go.
Yep. And the bent grass is sitting there for another month.
You get a winter like this one where it's exposed in February and it's minus 20 degrees and the wind's killing it. It's dead and it's black with a fork and punch holes and see the hell out of it.
So is it typically like a low temperature exposure desiccation scenario that gets you more than ice damage?
It did this year.
Okay.
We've had when I left, I worked here before, and then I left and went to Riverstone, and then I came back. That winter there, I hadn't signed a contract here yet, and I came back, and there was a ton of ice damage too.
Okay.
And that all got replaced by POA.
Yeah.
But now, overseeding with Pure Select, it's now a battle. You can see the POA. And our fairways are just a mixed breed of whatever lives. They're not weeding some of it.
Sure.
Cover that, and then we got a seed plant really close here. So they said they donate seeds. So I threw some mixtures together to throw on our teams to see what happened. Red creeping fescues and other things. Just let's see what this looks like. So they'll be interested to see when that all germinates.
Is that part of the Brett Young family or just another seed plant somewhere?
GLF.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, so they're giving us free seed. Like I told my Brett Young guy, I'll still buy. They don't have any bent grass seed yet, but I can go a mile and a half away and get free seed. Well, that's great. Spend the money on bent. Well, I have this year a lot of money on bent grass.
Yeah, it's I had a tough winter of exposure early, no snow cover, lost some POA, and I kind of developed the saying again. I can be somewhat pessimistic that POA is great until it isn't, right? but like you said, it's the first thing to come back too every year. So you kind of have to take it as it comes, I guess.
Yes, and then I get this thing, Simon and Garfunkel the seeds of POA every day. So
yeah.
The Sound of Silence. I sing that to myself as I'm mowing the green.
The Sound of Silence. I like it.
The Sita Poa.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to curling, because I think a lot of people maybe have seen it or seen memes with it or whatever, but it's not a sheet of ice like a hockey rink. So what do you do for prepping that? Talk to me about, like, how many are there? Is it a rink, or is it a sheet? What do you
It's a
call it? I
sheet.
can't. Okay.
It's a sheet. I work a 3-sheeter.
Okay.
I've worked back in the early days of my life. I worked at a 12-sheeter in Kelowna, and then a 4-sheeter and some 5-sheeters. But I look after a 3-sheeter here. So you pebble, you spray water up into the air, and
Right.
it lands like a mountain. And then you got this thing called a nipper, so it nips off the tips, and then I run the rocks to shape it a little more. And you got to put enough pebble on the last 8 ends or 10 ends, depending on your game. And an end is one way, it'd be one end, one way back end.
Okay.
16 rocks per end, and then if your pebble breaks down, then your ice becomes flat and it becomes harder to curl. And you just work the ice. It's like working a green, really, because it breathes a little bit. If there's wind currents, it'll cause ice to disappear or melt, not melt, but
Kind of
and
evaporate, right?
evaporate. And like when our front door opens for the center, our door going into the curling rink will open, so there's a little gust of wind that goes through there. So you know that curling box where the rocks are in that corner there, you have to take some water and freeze it every now and then. And your curling ice, ideally, it's about 1.25 inch. I run mine a little higher, about 1.5 inches, just because I have these sheets that go from end to end.
Mm-hmm.
They're not perfectly flat, so I got to get the wrinkles out of them.
Okay.
And it beats the heck out of painting. I've painted ice before. That's tedious and hard work. And I can still get good curl on my ice and good speed. You're always trying to get as fast as you can without it too fast. You want it hog to hog. That's the line, so you have to release it beforehand. I can get my ice running about 50.5 seconds, which is top quality Briar ice. And when I have issues with my ice, the guy in Grand Prairie used to be the number 2 ice maker in Canada, and he's a member of the golf course. So I just phone him and say, "Hey, Rod, what do I got going?" "Oh, I'll be there in 45 minutes. So he'll come out and, "Oh, you got this here and this here." And then after each game, you scrape the pebble off.
Okay.
You,
Okay. That's what I was
you
going to
got a
ask.
scraper, you scrape the pebble off, and then you repebbled it. And guys that have different pebble cans will use 2 different heads. One a bigger head for the first base and a smaller head for the second base. I just walk a little faster on the second base,
Huh.
and then I'll cheat. I'll go from top of the house to just outside the hog line, so my ice will get really late curl. And when out of town teams show up here, it really freaks them out because it'll break them 3.5 feet the last 15 feet. Whereas my locals just love it because they know they can throw it out there with the right amount of handle.
They
And it'll,
know.
but now the way they teach it more of a pop throw, and it has a bit more handle because they think everybody's getting to the TV events. And that's a little different. You
Okay.
have to. So when I play with like Riley on my 2-on-2 team, because she's competitive, she pops it a little, and then she realizes, no, get on our ice, you just lazy handle a bit, and we'll get the curl we want.
Got it.
And you have to go back to her U15 team, and now I got to pop it again.
So,
I gave
so
I
you,
gave her a key to the club, and she goes to practice by herself now.
oh, wow. So what you described in curling management, curling sheet management is kind of like a combination of uh, top dressing and cultivation of a green to get a speed, but also kind of some of those local surface preps that the baseball fields do if they know they've got a a team that bunts a lot, they'll let that infield grass grow up a little bit, or if they've got if they want a little bit faster, the groundskeepers will mow it down a little bit more and kind of make that infield a little bit quicker. And it's interesting that you can get that kind of local advantage, I guess. Is that what you would call it?
Yeah, and every ice surface is different. Like if you go play, I'll go to Grand Prairie, and because Roger's so good, it'll be better than my ice. It'll have a more gradual curl. Mine's a lake breaking curl. Then I'll go play Sexsmith. They're completely different. It's got less curl and it's a little slower. And then you go play somewhere else, it's a completely different surface. Again, like
I had no idea.
The stuff you watch on TV, like in Canada, they've got the best ice dudes in the world doing it, and the pros know what they're getting.
Sure.
You go to your local curling club, we can get what you watch on TV, but we can't get it. My goal is to get it daily, but I can't. You want to get it there, but you know you can't. So you want to peak for the big events.
Okay.
Or whatever. So.
Interesting. I didn't know anything about it, I guess. I thought I knew a little bit of something, but I didn't know anything about that.
Well, there's all sorts of different pebble heads. I pebble with an air presser thing, and most of the other people have a backpack one with the water coming out using gravity.
Okay.
I'm going to buy one of those and add it to my repertoire for next year. But I found I had one with just a one strap, and my shoulders are slouchy, so I ended up like almost choking myself with it. So I'm like, no, I can't use that. I have to find a different way. So I did, and that was like 20 years ago when I was in Ranch Pack when I became ice guy there. So it was I had
very
to figure out a different way.
That's really interesting. Okay, so I'm going to use the rest of the time, which is not very much time, actually. Remember I told you it would go really quickly as soon as we got into this?
I'm looking at 5:02 on my clock. So.
I know. So what do you, I know the answer to this to a certain degree, but what do you do outside of work? I know you work a ton, but what are your hobbies?
Well, I collect baseball cards.
Yeah. Well, how is that? Because baseball isn't exactly the primary sport in Canada.
Well, I collected hockey and baseball, and then I sold all my hockey stuff in '85 and got into baseball. And now I'm trying to complete from 1960 to 1990 a set from every year.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah,
every team?
What's that? Like,
every major league team?
Yeah, like the complete set of tops. So, like I'm working on 63. And I'm down to 2 cards, a mantle that's $300 or $400, and a Rose Rookie, which is 4 figures. So those don't have to wait for a while, and then so it's fun. I've met some good people up here that collect, so I've been able to do some trading. We throw a lot of darts.
Okay.
And we garden, although our garden sucks this year because of the wind, and our tomatoes may not live. We had a forest earlier of them.
Tomatoes got to be a tough ask for you in that climate, I would think.
Well, it is, but it isn't. You start them inside in March.
Sure.
Growing, but like right now, it doesn't get completely dark either.
Right.
Like the hue for this is the longest day. 3 weeks on each side of this. I can go out and take a picture at 1 a.m, and it's not dark. It's just hue.
Yeah.
We're that far north. I lived an hour further north before, and it was even brighter. Like the hour difference is crazy.
And I've heard too that I think it was an Acres book that I read that the magnetic field near the poles, like you can grow corn in half the time in Alaska than you can in the Corn Belt of the States because of the daylight hours and the magnetic poles and something to do with the soils there. It's really interesting. You wouldn't think about that, but that seems plausible just with the daylight hours alone, right?
Well, you think it doesn't get dark. You think June 1st up in Alaska, it's not going to be dark it's not going to have night again till August 1st. Well, that's 2 months of brightness.
Right.
If it's warm enough, you can grow almost anything.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So,
Very interesting. So darts, okay, well that's good. What's on the docket this year for the golf course? You got any projects besides just keeping it green and
we had one green that kind of got died out because they didn't believe me that it was tree roots. So we had to restart it. But the kid's going to bring in the hoe, and I'm going to cut the roots anyways.
Nice.
And I hope we knock down a couple trees too. We built the tee last year that we're going to finish this year. A new tee on number 5. The boss wants the community's build a driving range. But to finish that, they're making the decision between finishing the driving range or building a better parking lot at the center. So
might be another year on that one.
Yeah, and then I look at them and say, well, who's going to pick up balls? Like, who's maintaining? You're always adding, and you're not adding staff.
Right.
The president of the whole society, I showed her the ball picker thing. Oh, well, we should get that. I said, yes, you should. Then you don't have to worry about staff. Like the one that does it automatically.
Oh, the robotic one. Yeah.
Like pay the money up front and be done with it.
Right.
So I might have convinced them to do that, which would be cool. The soccer field, we just had a ball tournament a couple of weeks ago, and they drove all their trailers onto the soccer field. So I'm going to go to the big board and see if I can. There's a big pile of soil there. And do some top dressing because there's a lot of ruts. And when you're mowing, you're shaking away, and it'll be the last time I have to mow until September because I'll send a kid to go do it. But at the end of the day, you're bouncing everywhere, and it's not a good mow. So if we can top dress some of that, it's going to happen every year anyways. But
right. Well, hopefully some of the folks that are listening at maybe some of the bigger budget courses can kind of take what we talked about and say, you know what, maybe I don't have it off so bad after all. I've got a couple extra staff members and things like that. But I think the bottom line that I got out of this is that no matter what your budget, no matter what your staff level is, you do everything you can for the golfers and for the guests and at the end of the day, you gotta put your head on the pillow and say, I did everything I could today, and it's going to be there again tomorrow, right?
That's the point we're at now. We're doing the best we can with what we have.
Yeah.
And the cavalry's coming tomorrow. So
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure I'll get a team photo on your social media feed. I can't wait. So I'm excited.
At some point I'll have to get the clouds together. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Nick, I appreciate you coming on, and it's late in the day on a Friday, so I don't know if you're hoisting a beer or if you're a wine guy.
You're cracked pretty quick, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. I appreciate it, and appreciate everybody tuning in today, and hopefully maybe we can apply some of what Nick's doing at his place up in the Great White North, and thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it, and one of these days we're going to have to meet in person. I know we've kind of bumped into each other a few times online, but hopefully we can meet each other in person someday.
That would be cool. The problem is when all the shows are on, I'm knee deep in curling, so I don't get to go to the Alberta Superintendent's one or the Canadian or the Western Canadian. Like those are we're curling.
You're rocking and rolling. Yeah, rocking literally, right?
Yeah. No pun intended. Yeah. We're rocking.
That's great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, and have yourself a great weekend, and let's get those greens where they need to be, and have a great rest of your summer.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin, for inviting me. This is fun. I would tell anybody, if you get the invite, go do it. It's fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate everybody tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next one.